I'm Hannah and I'm the Stylus Director of Schools and a former Head of English. In this video, I'm going to be talking through how I might design a planning sequence where I assume that I have a class who are writing fairly repetitive or uninteresting openings to their stories, and I want to model to them how to build tension and excitement with the introduction of a new place or an exciting event. So I'm going to start by looking at a model extract that I'll be using in my lesson. I'm going to go through and identify all of the different elements of that text that are successful in creating excitement and tension, and think about how I might model those in front of students. And then I'm going to sign into the teacher tool and show how I might connect that to some of the technical feedback that I have from the stylus marking. This is the opening from A Nowhere Emporium, which I'm going to use as a model for a class over how to build tension, suspense, excitement when introducing an event. So in the opening line, the shot from nowhere arrived with the dawn on a crisp November morning. What I really like here straight away is this adverbial at the end of the sentence. So this is already giving me ideas for how I might get students to open their pieces. So I like that use of with, but also the adverbial phrase here. So I'm going to annotate as I go so that I know what kind of things I might want to pick up on when I actually do this with students. I travel quickly around the village, and by midday, so there's another nice adverbial there. The movement from dawn to midday is a good example of sort of building tension over the course of the text, or building excitement, anticipation. The place was abuzz with rumour and hearsay. I like the use of dialogue here. The three lines of dialogue with no speech tags to sort of show the like what everyone's saying, the rumours that are going around. So I'm going to annotate this as well and put dialogue to build excitement. And then by evening time, that's really nice. So what I'm picking out here is this movement forward in time. So I'm thinking I could get the class to look at different times of day to show how excitement has built, and then sort of mix that with those lines of dialogue with no speech tags, sort of suggesting that everyone's saying things, everyone's got views. So I'm going to annotate that as adverbials of time showing excitement building. My handwriting is atrocious, but luckily no one apart from me needs to be able to read this. By evening time, a curious crowd had begun to gather around the mysterious building. They jostled for position and trained its strange and wonderful theories. I really like that word, jostled, as well. I'm just going to underline it because that might be one that I pick up on. Hoping to catch a glimpse of movement, the shop was indeed built from bricks the colour of midnight, bricks that shimmered and sparkled. That's gorgeous. So that repetition of the noun there, that's something else I could pick up on. So another sentence structure I might encourage them to use is around introduce the noun and then introduce it again with a bit more description. You've got that nice use of the relative pronoun there to introduce the subordinate clause. So there's a good structure, that shimmered and sparkled. So let's put relative pronoun, subordinate clause. Under the glare of gas street lamps, blocking the doorway was a golden gate so fine and intricate that some wondrous spider might have spun it. Over the windows, curling letters spelled out a name. Then we go into the introduction. We've got some more adverbials going on here. So that's standing out as something that I definitely want to draw attention to when I'm doing this with a class. So adverbials building excitement over time, but also those descriptions of helping you position where things are within the building. There was a glimmer of movement in the entranceway and a ripple of excitement passed through the crowd, and then silence fell, a silence so deep and heavy. So it's done that device again. If I circle silence, silence, we've got that same repetition of the noun. So let's pick that out again. I also really like that simile, hang in the atmosphere like mist, so that might be something else that I draw attention to. And then we've also got that again here. So same as up here, we had the repetition of the noun with that followed by some sort of description of what it's doing. Bricks that shimmered and sparkled, a silence so deep and heavy that it seemed to hang. So that's something I'll draw attention to. The shop door swung open, the fine golden gate turned to dust, scattering in the wind. There's more repetition here, yeah, so golden gate, golden gate. So introducing an image and then coming back to it to show how it's changed. Let's annotate that. So repetition of image to show change. The air was suddenly alive with 100 scents. Oh, I like this too. Right, I'm going to label the colon to introduce a list. Perfume with toasted coconut and baking bread, salty air. And then we've got the semicolons as well. So if I do have those slightly more advanced students who might be able to incorporate this, I can annotate that as semicolon for longer list items. And that's a lovely sensory description as well. So let's put a note in the margin over here. Okay, so looking back over this, what am I picking up on? So the things I'm going to try and draw attention to, going through this with a class, would be the use of adverbials, both of time and of place. So I particularly like this movement through the day. So that's a structure that could be repeated. The morning, the middle of the day, the evening, what's happened and how is excitement growing over that period of time. I like the dialogue to build excitement here. So no speech tags, not assigned to anyone, just lines of things that people are saying. I like this repetition of nouns that happens a couple of times, followed by that, bricks, that. Where was the other one? Golden gate, so fine and intricate, that. So I'm going to draw attention to that as a way of varying sentence structures. Oh, there we go, there's another one down here. So repetition and this repeating of an image to show it changing as well. And then for some students, I might also get them to have a go at this colon. So those who are pretty happy with all their adverbials and with their repetition might have a go at using a colon to introduce a really sensory list like this, with the semicolon to separate the items. So those are the things that I'm going to focus on. So the next step is getting a sense for how secure students are with some of the technical skills that underpin this. So now that I've had a think about the particular skills that I want to model in lesson and the things I want my students to try and incorporate into their own work, I'm going to go onto the Stylus teacher tool and have a look at whether students have the technical skills underpinning the things that I'm going to be encouraging them to try out in the lesson. So the first thing I'm going to do is filter by narrative so that I'm only looking at previous narrative work that students have completed. One of the things I wanted them to try and do was include a list of 3 lines of dialogue, 4 lines of dialogue that show what people are saying and how excitement is building in the area, the village where this event's going to happen. So I'm going to go on to the first criteria here, integrating dialogue, and just check the aggregated view, which shows me that students are pretty strong as a class at using colloquial language or contractions in their dialogue when they do it, but perhaps not quite so successful in all consistently using dialogue, or at least using dialogue to advance the narrative. I can then go into this by piece view and see for individual students how they're doing. So straight away, George Orwell's looking pretty strong. F. Scott Fitzgerald looks like maybe his dialogue's a little bit weaker. So I can go through and see who might need some support. The rest of them are looking pretty strong. So then I might want to look at some of the technical side of that, so the demarcation. So I'm going to go into using the range of punctuation taught at Key Stage 2. And using inverted commas to indicate direct speech. I'll put this back onto the aggregated view. As a class, the evidence is a little bit mixed. The AI confidence is also lower on this one, which means that when stylists are moderating the judgments, we're making more changes to inverted commas to indicate direct speech than we do to other criteria comparatively. So I might want to just go onto this by piece view, pop out the scans, And as I'm skimming through, if there's anyone who's jumping out who's particularly weak, so again, F. Scott Fitzgerald there, we haven't got very much evidence, so I can just look through the scan and see where he's attempted to use a dialogue within his piece. I'd also talked about using adverbials in different positions within the sentence. So I can go into using a range of devices to build cohesion. And we've got here adverbial phrases. Again, I'll just pop that back to the aggregated view. Adverbial phrases at the end of a sentence, adverbials of place, and adverbials of time. So this one they're strong on. Again, it looks like maybe using adverbials of place they're good at, but positioning them at the end of a sentence specifically is something they're finding a little trickier. So I can go back into my by piece view and look for different students. F. Scott Fitzgerald again. And actually George Orwell, we haven't got very much evidence of George Orwell being able to demonstrate that. So he's another student that when I get to that part of the lesson, I might want to check in on him. And then the last bit that I want to look at is around punctuation again. So I have a semicolon example at the end of the piece that I might want to check. It looks like semicolons haven't been very strong for this group, so that might be one that only my most able students are looking at. And then we've looked at inverted commas to indicate direct speech. A comma after a fronted adverbial is another one. So because I'm going to be actively encouraging students to go and use fronted adverbials in their writing, knowing that actually not so many of them are confident at remembering to use the comma, that's something I want to remind them to do before I encourage them to go off and demonstrate that skill. So I'll just go back onto the by piece view. So F. Scott Fitzgerald again, George Orwell possibly, Henry James. So there's not too many of them who've demonstrated this successfully across a range of pieces. So I've now got some students in mind who I'm going to check in on before I send them off to go and start using fronted adverbials, go and start using dialogue, and go and start actually demonstrating some of these skills that we will have modelled when we go through that extract.